here with a very special guest today, a big hero of mine that I've been waiting a long time to meet. Interviewed him a couple of times on the phone over the years, but we're here with Michael Schenker. Welcome to Toronto again, Michael.
Hi, thank you.
Okay, Michael, let's talk about recent events, Temple of Rock being the most recent, of course. At what point during the extensive multi-continent touring of 2009-2010 and that tour garnered rave reviews, by the way, that ultimately morphed into a 30th anniversary MSG tour. When did you start actually working on the material for the first Temple of Rock album during that time frame?
Well, when I make a record, from the last album to the next album, I basically collect, I love to play and discover on a regular basis, and when it's time to make a new record, then I keep like pieces 5-10 seconds long. I put them on the cassette recorder, and when it's time to make a record, I listen to what I have and what inspires me straight away. That's what I hear that kind of sticks out. I add other parts to it, and basically I don't really know what any album is going to be like until the end of the recording, because it's like building one brick by brick basically. And then when my material is done, I give it to the singer, and then he does his thing with it. So basically, what happens also, how this record has been, created. It's also something that it's like the universe as a driver. I just do my part. It all happens step by step, and it actually started kind of with let's say 2008, when I did In the Midst of Beauty with Gary Barden. That was about the time when I discovered that all of a sudden I started to feel incredible liking for being on stage. I never had that before. I used to drink because I was stage fright, so I never really felt comfortable on stage. And so somehow in 2008, all of that changed. And so, that was, if I look back now, that's how I see it, And so basically, it was around 2010 maybe, Pete Way and Herman Werbel, they showed up at an MSG show at Shepherd's Bush in London, and they jammed with us. Pete Way seemed to be in a good spirit, and so Herman, Pete and I, we decided to jam together in Brighton and put together I hadn't played Strangers in the Night for a long time, material, and so we put together basically like my most popular music from the past with my involvement, and so we played like MSG, Scorpions, U.F.O, and stuff like that, and at the same time I decided to go into I was ready to record a record. It was time. And so I went to Germany, into the studio to make a demo, and Michael Voss, the engineer, was there. So I had no idea what I was doing. All I knew, I had material, and so I asked him to help me with guide vocals because I was still looking for a singer. And so when he was singing, I went, "Hey, you can actually sing. Why don't you sing the album?" Yeah, oh great, And so he was producing, engineering, and singing. And so when I finished the demo, I took it back to the UK and played it to Herman and to Pete, and they were so impressed, and they wanted to be the rhythm section. So I had a band together. Then Michael Voss, he did a really nice, like a really good intro. That where I said to him, if we had a great, like a famous actor with a big voice, it would be fantastic. It would be suitable. A few days later, I get a phone call from William Shatner's agent from Captain Kirk Star Trek, if I wanted to play on his album. And I said, "This is the guy. Ask him if he would do the intro, the speaking on my new record." And so I ended up on his record. He ended up speaking on my record. I said to Michael, "This is incredible, This is all going by itself, He said, "You know what, maybe it feels like maybe it's something we should do, something like invite past musicians. I had so many great players. Just, we made a list of 20 people, And most of them were available. My brother was playing, Paul Raymond, Simon Phillips, Carmen Eppes, Chris Slade, Chris Glenn, you name it, lots of great musicians. And Doogie White and Robin McCauley was singing a song. And by the time we finished the record and I wanted to put a world tour together, Michael Voss signed a solo deal. He wasn't available. I went, now what, So I had to figure out how to do this. I asked Robin McCauley if he would help out in America, and he was happy to do that. Michael Voss was available for Japan, and Doogie White was available for Europe. So by the time we got to Europe, Pete Way wasn't doing too well. I said to Herman, why don't you call up Francis and ask him what he's up to? We're playing lots of Scorpion songs. He would be very suitable. It would be really good because we only did one album together, Love Drive, but it would be great. It would almost be like a little Love Drive reunion, And so Francis was more than happy. The moment he came to the studio, and that was the beginning of this lineup, that's when it was really born, because here we had a chemistry all of a sudden that was vibrating. It felt just like that right from the beginning, and it went like that, day after day, week after week. It was getting better and better. I said, like, in the middle of the European tour, I went like, I better arrange a video shoot before something happens. I will at least want to have a memory of this. And so Tilburg in Holland was the most suitable place, for the routing to fit in, and so we did that DVD and finished we finished the European tour 2012 in around end of September. We were getting more and more offers, so many offers that we had to add a second leg of a European tour next year in 2013, starting April. So I saw 6 months of space, I said, like, what do you think of making a record, to everybody? And everybody went, yeah, and so I started writing. So I got my stuff out since the first Temple of Rock, which was only like I think a year before we released that one. So what I had selected since then, and I went into the recording studio. I mean, actually, I was writing, put together enough material. By the end of the year, which, October, November, December, I had enough to give to Doogie. I said, Doogie, here is material. Think Bridge the Gap and think melodic. Because Bridge the Gap, I already knew when Francis joined, because we did Love Drive. And we had Francis and Herman and myself, and so this was our second record after all these years.
A bridge to the past.
Yeah, and so connect the past with the now, and so it was very suitable. Plus, I had an idea because Wayne Findlay was developing very nicely on the 7-string guitar, which he started around 2005. And I watched it carefully, and he was ready to, to make that step, also bridge, the gap kind of a thing, because, it was that kind of album, because I felt like the cycle was closing off, that there was something going on that made me feel like 18 years old. I was thinking of I was thinking of how I wanted the album, fast, heavy, melodic and hard and dramatic or whatever, and I had a special feeling about that, and so Doogie went and started working on his part. I went to the studio and put down arrangements. We rented a special studio for drums. We put the bass down and the 7-string and the keyboards, and then it was Doogie's turn. We selected the best parts, Doogie, Michael Voss, and myself. We sat together, finished the vocals on the 31st of March. And in 2013, and on the 4th of April, we already had our first show in Russia. The problem was now that the album was not going to be released until a few months later, and so
October.
I never had a situation like this. It kind of confused me a bit. But I said, like, I don't even play the result to anybody. I put it away. We were in touring mode. I don't want recording mode interfere with touring mode. by the time the second leg of the European tour was finished in around August, I played it to everybody. The great thing about it was everybody had fresh ears. We were, when you're in the studio, you're in it, you kind of can lose perspective. Here we had the luxury, unplanned, luxury of with fresh ear. We knew immediately what we needed to do. Everybody put in their opinion about it. We opened up the album. We added other parts to it. We remixed it. We remastered it, and it got that much better. And I tell you, I had these situations, and many artists, I know that 2 months after release, they say, I wish I had done this different. Here it was. We had a perfect.
You had the time.
Absolutely incredible. And so, and there is the album, and so basically what happened now is that, we're putting together a world tour, but we can't start it until March, with the album lineup in 2014. So I had to, this album was going to be released on the 7th of January, and I said to everybody, look, I have come to America. Every time I come over here, I never promote anything. I don't promote my albums, my new releases. I never promote any tours. I just show up and play to my hardcore fans. This is very special. I want to be here when the album is released, So I said, look, I take Doogie with me, introduce him to America as my new singer, and Wayne is already here. So we put some shows together, with the help of Ref Jones on bass and Pete Holmes on drums. We can go from coast to coast and do, new album release promotion tour. Just mention the album and the upcoming world tour in autumn, being here in the States with Herman and Francis from coast to coast. Make sure everybody knows about the new album, about us coming, and play bigger places and have full houses, So that's the idea, and we have enough shows. We're going from coast to coast, and so I want to make sure that everybody knows that this is what's going to happen, and here we are.
You've answered a lot of questions in that one answer, let me tell you. But let's go back then a little bit, and you were doing all of that touring with Gary at the time when you were doing the 30th anniversary tour and all that. When you started with this material, was there any thought that he would be part of it, or
When I started what?
when you started the writing process for the first Temple of Rock record, or were you already thinking that I want to?
Gary was gone. Gary was in Thailand. Bye-bye, Gary. he started a new chapter in his life, and that's why I went into studio. I knew I had to it was time for me to make a record, and I think the one before was Limits of Beauty, right?
Right.
So,
Gary.
and Gary, I knew Gary was in Thailand. That's why I know Michael Voss through Gary, and so when I was thinking demo, I thought, Michael, and so, and that's when I kind of asked him, because I knew he was a singer, if he could help me out, but I didn't know what kind of a voice he had. And when he was singing, I actually, and we working very well together. That's how the first Temple of Rock album came together. And then Doogie was singing one song on the album, and I wrote a special song for Doogie, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, and that became an underground hit. So, but the way things worked out, it was an underground hit in the UK, but Michael not being available to do it, but Doogie, it just kind of strange circumstances.
It's all very cool. So, getting to Doogie for a second, I know that he was another guest on that famous Shepherd's Bush.
Yeah.
I guess in June of.
That's correct. Yeah.
So, had you met him before then? Had you crossed
we
paths?
have crossed paths many times, and Doogie, we were on stage together in Italy somewhere, and quite a few times, like maybe 3-4 times, we did something together, and somehow there was always this thing about, hey, we should do something together sometimes, and step by step, that's how it worked towards it.
You've already answered the next 5 questions, which had to do with writing the second album and putting it on the shelf, putting it aside, and coming back to it with fresh ears much later, which is a great thing, as you've said.
Yeah.
Most who have heard this record are calling it your best and most cohesive work in the past 20 years, myself included. Do you find that very satisfying to hear?
Well, I kind of have an idea what's happening if I look back, Obviously, none of it I knew ahead of time, but it's very, very interesting if I look back. Like my life has been in three sections, The first stage of my life was all about developing as a musician, as a guitarist, and all the way up to Strangers in the Night, it was all about musical contribution to the world for the 80s to experiment with, it appears to be. And I was focusing on pure self-expression all my life, basically. Like a monk stays away from external music, external life, I stay away from external music. And I'm just, that's where my passion is, to express from within. And so basically that kind of, when I came to Strangers in the Night, after that my brother found out they were doing Love Drive. They asked me to help out because my tears wasn't capable yet to make a whole album to the level of what they needed or wanted. So I wrote all the melodies to Coast to Coast. I wrote the intro to Holiday, and I played the solos in Love Drive and Piece of Meat, and I think maybe even Always Somewhere, I can't remember, I'm not really sure. And so basically, I opened the doors for America for my brother, for the Scorpions. He took over, and I basically withdrew. I kind of focused on, okay, I'm going to put something together, and I just want to do the things that I'm interested in. I want to experiment. I want to do things, acoustic instrumentals, electric instrumentals. I want to do all of these things. I can't do them with Ozzy Osbourne or Deep Purple or the Scorpions or Aerosmith and so on. All these bands have asked me over the years to join them, but I couldn't do it because at the end of the day I asked myself the question, would I be happy with them? Because no, the answer would be no, because I wouldn't be able to do all these things, Plus the middle years, for me, it was all about, most of it was about personal development, And so, and when in 2008, all of a sudden I had this urge for being, like wanting to, starting to develop a liking, being on stage. I kind of took that as a message. It's time to be back in a loop of rock and roll to celebrate this incredible era of rock that started for me with Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, et cetera, et cetera. And many of those great players have already passed away. John Bonham, Keith Moon, Jimi Hendrix, John Lord, recently Elvin Lee, Lou Reed, Gary Moore, Johnny James Dio, you name it. It's kind of. My father was an engineer. Every time he finished building a house and put the roofing on, they had a big celebration. That's how I look at it. And before you even know, it's going to be just a memory. Yeah, I mean. It's going to be more and more people passing away, and then it's just going to be a memory. And so I want to emphasize this era of rock one more time, and basically that's my third stage of my life, is to celebrate that incredible era.
Let's get to the title of the latest record, Bridge the Gap. I see it kind of as a metaphor for some sort of rebirth, or maybe as you've just described, a new phase in your life. As well as being a link to the past. How did you come up with the idea, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, it's like, even Bridge the Gap connected with what happened on this planet, at this point in time. There's a lot of gap bridging going on, and so I think it's very suitable for many different things,
Throughout your career, and it's a career that's had highs and lows, ups and downs, one thing that has to be said is you are constantly working throughout and constantly coming up with killer riffs, musical ideas. Where does your creative muse come from?
People ask me who I am, and I say I'm a spirit on a mission, spreading the joy of music from a place of pure self-expression, and that's basically what sums it up.
One of my favorite records of yours was on Shrapnel. It was called MS-2000, Dreams and Expressions. You remember that one, I'm sure. It's the 21-track instrumental that runs seamlessly one track into the next with just all of these amazing riffs and ideas coming out, both acoustic and electric. How did you come up with the idea to do that? Was it, as you mentioned earlier, always working on little things?
It just comes, it just comes. And I think, that the middle years was experimenting and do off-the-wall things, basically. It was a lot of fun doing that, to do it different, go seamlessly from one thing to another, make it an adventure, going from one journey. It's like going through scenery, then you go to the ocean, you go to the mountains, you go from different place to different places. That's a musical journey. It was fun thing to do, But that's happening, It's like for me, people ask me, what's your best music you have ever done and stuff like that. I can't tell because every moment is the best, And you cannot go back to those moments because the circumstances make the moment a moment, the external circumstances. External circumstances changes as the moment changes, so you cannot repeat any moments, And so every moment is very special for where you are at in life at that point in time, And I don't even look at songs so much either, For me, I'm fascinated with the single string and what I can do with it. It's just amazing, That's why I never write complete songs, I never really know what the outcome is going to be.
One constant in the last 5 years has been Wayne Findlay. He's been with you for quite a while now, and you guys have obviously a great rapport together. So tell us what it's like working with somebody like Wayne.
Wayne has always been available. He's very stable. He does what I need him to do, which is play the rhythm guitar and the keyboards. And so I have that stuff on the records. So it's important. And he does it in one person, doing basically two things. And Paul Raymond did it, And so basically, and he was there since '99. And every time I made a record, every time I made a record, because I didn't make commercial music, like album tour in a machine, promoting it and so on, and being in the charts. I just played music for fun. And when it is time to get the same players from the past, they're already gone again because they have to earn money. They're already part with another band. And Wayne did his own thing too. But somehow it worked out that he was available. And so, but in 2005, I think, or 2006, he started, to develop on the 7-string, and that has become. He has now developed into, like Francis has got his history, and Herman and Dougie and myself, and it's like he's becoming an important player now, because he has something now nobody does, which is the 7-string, and the 7-string is another reason for saying bridge the gap, because it bridges the traditional music makes it more modern. We put it together, and so we are now a very good. We have a good foundation for keep going and keeping it interesting.
And you really sound like you're becoming a band, wanting this to be a band with Dougie on board. And since the Bridge the Gap material was written quite a long time ago now, even though the record is fresh, do you have more material ready to go now, or what do you think?
Look at it. It's like Temple of Rock. When was that released?
2011.
2011, okay. So, and then when was Bridge the Gap recorded? I started writing 2012 in October. So that was a year of material, and so I have started to do the same thing, since we finished the Bridge the Gap album, which was around March the 31st. That's when we finished. Let's say, let's say that would be the day when I, went on tour again and started to collect riffs. So basically, I have material now. I never listen to it, by the way. I just, 5-second piece, 10-second piece, I play and I put it away, And so when it's time, by the way, I already have an idea what we're going to do for the next album, by the way. And so it's, use more of the 7 strings and go together in one studio, rehearsal studio, one plays a riff and everybody else contributes in the moment of what, and then bounce back ideas, etc., which I used to do with U.F.O in the very beginning. And so that is something very exciting to do, because I haven't had that kind of situation. I haven't had a band with a great chemistry, and so this is like the first time. So automatically that idea comes to mind to do that. And then obviously I will also have a look at my collection of bits that I have collected since we finished the recording of Bridge the Gap, and then that will be part of that.
In the past several years, you've been rewarded with several honors and awards. Which of those is the most meaningful to you?
Well, I just think it's fascinating for, you're just being yourself, and you're having fun playing the guitar, and I never really knew that I had that much of an impact on the rest of the world. I know it now when I look back, and I can see certain things, what my function maybe is or has been, etc., etc. But I would only be reported to me what's going on. My brother would call me early 80s, Michael, we are here in the States, everybody's playing your style of guitar playing, and no way, really, and so on, like that. And then the next thing I hear Metallica and Guns N' Roses and all those bands, that I had a major impact on them, influence, and so all of those, and then you get awarded. It is just kind of, wow, I had no idea, but this is great,
You've had a long relationship with Dean now. Tell us about how that works. Are you constantly tweaking the model going forward?
Yeah, Dean, they approached me in Chicago 2000, I even forgot, 4 or 5, was it? Yeah, 4. And then Uli was supporting us. We were out there with MSG, I believe. And so I was doing the sound check, he presented that guitar, and Michael, why don't you try this guitar? I tried it. Uli liked it straight away too, and I went like, this is a great guitar, very solid, sings incredible, and it's connected to the body, very stable, and it's every fret and everywhere where I would play it, you can make it sing, and it's just kind of fantastic guitar. They're great people, they made a great offer, and that was it. And since then, whenever they have an idea of coming up with something that is maybe new or different or could be working, I approve it, and I tell them, if I like it or not, and or what they should do in order to make it work the way I can, be behind it. And that's what we do. And basically, I kind of quite like it because they come up with ideas, and because I use my ears and my hands, So basically, I'm not a technical person, period, And everything I do is by ear. I once went into a recording studio with my brothers. I was looking for a new wah-wah pedal, I think it was, or was it amplifier? I can't remember. Anyway, my guitar tech, he was capable. He had this invention. He was able pickups I was looking for. He was able to take a pickup out in 2 minutes and put another one in. I don't know how he did it. I closed my eyes and just played it, and I picked one, just not knowing what and I think it was an EMG, and the other one was a Shala. It was really weird. But anyway, I do it with my ears, and if it sounds, I don't want to be, influenced by brand names or anything like that. I just want something to be good, And so, when they come up with stuff and it sounds good, that's and because they're coming up, and because they're the technicians, they're coming up with modern inventions and stuff like this, and so they basically, I get it in my hands, and I can say if I like this step or not, and then so I kind of can upgrade my own sound and stuff,
So if it looks good, feels good, and sounds good,
Absolutely.
That's good enough.
Yeah, what else would there be?
Precisely. We know that Michael Schenker is flying V guitars, Marshall amplifiers, but one of the big keys of your sound through your career has been the wah-wah pedal set to a certain point. Which wah-wah pedal are you using these days?
Well, the Dunlop, fantastic. I think a Dimebag, yeah. Basically, I think what they did is what I did. I did this middle step, The normal wah-wah pedal was a wah-wah pedal, and the Crybaby, they were really good, the old ones, and then they were hard to get, But anyway, I discovered the wah-wah pedal when I was 15, 16 years old, and Mick Ronson played one, or who was it? Maybe, one of those guitarists. And I really was Humble Pie, maybe Peter Frampton, I can't remember, but I was really fascinated with the sound, you know. But when I plugged it into my own amplifier, it sounded really horrible, you know, like really choppy, and, you know, it didn't make any sense, you know. So saying that I'm not technical, you know, I opened up that thing. Somehow I had a concept. When I looked inside, it was so simple. I went like, I think I'm very inventive, but not technically very good. But anyway, it was so simple. I thought like, there is a particular sound when I move the wah-wah.
Certain point.
There's a certain sweet spot, you know, that's what I want. I always want that, you know, so what can I do that when I press the wah-wah pedal, it stays, that it gets me that sound straight away. And so I changed the thing inside, and so when I pressed down, I had that particular sweet sound, you know. And I stuck with that for quite a while, you know. And you can actually hear it very, very much on Another Suicide, Just Another Suicide, of Paul Raymond's song, and then I think also on there's one instrumental I did, a reprise. It's also a Paul Raymond song, Reprise. Anyway, so that's what I did, and then I think Dimebag took it the next level. They added EQs to it and stuff like this, so you could even make it more. You could actually make that
more
sound
shaping.
exactly the way you want it, you know. And so I'm fascinated with that. But the thing is that I went to the Marshall factory at the early 80s, and we designed an amplifier, but it got never released. I think I never finished. I don't know what happened. Maybe I had to start going on tour. I never got back. I don't know. But in 84, 85, my amplifier broke down, the one I was using up to then, and I was forced to look for a new amplifier. You know, I could looking around until I found the 2205, you know. And since I played that amplifier, I stopped using wah-wah pedal. And then I realized, and somebody told me, you know, said, "Hey, Michael, did you know that this amplifier was designed by your sound?" You know, and I went like, "Oh, they must have used the old, you know, in the fact was lying around Schenker model. Hey, why don't we try this?" And so it had already the elements built in, so that the wah-wah kind of characteristics was already there, so that adding a wah-wah pedal was almost like twice, you know, almost too much. But you know, so now I'm using the wah-wah pedal very, very rarely, because you know, just maybe if I used it on a record, if I want to keep the same atmosphere, I use it, or maybe I used it on a live album and it sounded good, and I want to keep that same vibe going. But in general, you know, anyway, the Dimebag is really good.
Currently, what strings and picks are you using?
Well, I'm using the Dunlop 60 millimeter, and strings, it really depends what's available. I never really focus on it. For me, important is the strength, which is 9 to 42, and you know, it can be anything from Ernie Ball to whatever's out there to
The Angelica.
yeah, and the yellow package and the blue package, and you know, it's the strengths. I don't like playing 8s. You know, I like 9 to 42. I don't like playing 10s too hard, and so.
Michael, if an alien arrived here from another planet, wanted to listen to one record that encapsulates the Michael Schenker style, which one would you recommend?
You know, I write, instead of individual songs, I write an album. And so basically my life is the soundtrack, you know. That's basically it. It's one long record from the beginning to the end. It's one big adventure because it never really repeats itself. It just keeps moving forward, more forward, developing. I love development. I love to play and discover on a musical level as well as on a personal level, and that's what my life is about. I have 2 other tattoos on my back. One says "Born to be Free," and the other one says "Born to Overcome," and that's my life. The first song I ever wrote was called, well, I wrote the music, and Klaus Meine wrote the lyrics, and he titled that song "In Search of Peace of Mind," and that's the theme of my life.
Being part of those great live LPs, Strangers in the Night, MSG at Budokan, do you think there's still a place in today's world, or has it been replaced with DVDs now?
I have no idea, because I'm not really a consumer. I love to create and invent, and so I don't really know what the world out there is up to. All I know is that definitely computer has an effect on music. I know that for sure, and not worse or better. It's just different, you know. And so that's why I call this era of sometimes handmade rock, you know, because you know with Zeppelin and Deep Purple, etc. That is the type, you know, and so by the time you know the people involved, it's a bit like this. You can never, you know, once you know the world is round, you cannot imagine what it was like when it was flat, you know. And so it's a bit similar to this. You cannot even, if you are born now, you may not be able to understand what that means and what it was, yeah. And so the people that were born when the wagon and the horses were there, they know what it felt like, how they were thinking, because based on the circumstances, external circumstances, they were doing their things based on the moment then. The people that were born into the generation of when the car was there and the rockets, they have no idea what it felt like when the wagons and the horses were around. It's the same thing, you know.
Many are saying that you are currently playing as well as, or maybe even better than you ever have. What do you think?
I develop constantly, you know. I mean, that's what I do, you know. I love to play and discover, and so it's like a kaleidoscope. What do you call it? Kaleidoscope. It's like, you know, it's infinite. It's like the combinations you can self-express are infinite. That's why I can always come up with more and more stuff. Plus, it's coming from within. It's always a brand new color. You know, each person that decides to express from within will be the only person that can express that. And that's why it is a new color that nobody knows about until you bring it out there. And I do that all the time. That's what my passion is.
I once had dinner with Uli, and he went into a long speech, as he can do, I'm sure you know. His speech was based on the fact that all of the best guitarists were born in 1954, himself included. So of course I had to interject and say, well, what about Michael? And he said, well, Michael was overdue. He should have been born in 54, but he waited until January. But he's close enough.
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting because, you know, it's like mushroom, what is that called, trifle, or like what the pigs find, or mushrooms come in what do you call it, clusters? Yeah, it's a bit like this, you know. It's a bit like Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton. They come from the Yardbirds kind of a thing. Scorpions, a similar thing, you know. It's Uli, Matthias, and myself, and all born in the same area. It's really weird. So I don't know how the universe works, you know, and how it all, you know, what it all is. But also there is an additional observation I have made, which is that you know, like Phil Mock from the Chinese horoscope, he is a rat, and Klaus Meine is a rat, you know. And when I was telling Dougie that, he said, Mike, you wouldn't believe it, I'm a rat too. And so I'm a horse, which means opposite poles, you know. It's as much as north and south, you know. So for creativity, the spectrum is unbelievable. It's like yin and yang, you know, like the horse has a lot of what the rat has little, the rat has a lot of what the horse has little, so you put them together, bang, you know, you have that range. And so, you know, and that's what the Scorpions are. Rudolf and Klaus is a rat. Francis, Uli, and I are horses. It's pretty incredible. And you know, Ozzy Osbourne and Tony, they are both rats, you know. And but anyway, so it's the from the. But horses and rats don't marry in China because for relationships it's too opposite. They can't deal with it, you know. It's just like. But for creativity, you know, as an artist, it seems to be a very you know, powerful.
Last question. So, growing up with Rudolph, were you guys best friends all the way growing up, and are you still best friends today?
Rudolf are very spiritual, you know, and so he was 6.5 years already on the planet when I was born, and so when I was 6, he was 12. When I was 12, he was already working, you know, which, in other words, we didn't really spend much time together, and he was more apparent than anything because, you know, my father was, you know, doing a lot of work outside as an architect engineer, you know, building houses, looking after that kind of stuff. And so my brother, you know, the older brother, you know, the older sister, they always end up doing that, looking after the, you know, the younger ones. And so that's what happened. The only time we actually really lived, did things together was from 15 years old when we did Lonesome Crow, up to 17 and a half, basically doing touring, and then this particular tour we did with U.F.O. when, you know, that was the last tour I did with the squad. But it was like 2.5 years we actually spent together, you know, and the rest is like he's over there, I'm over there doing things, you know, very, very little to do, and plus very focusing on what we are doing. We are both very, very focused, you know, on what we are doing. Like he had a vision of, you know, establishing one of the biggest bands in the world, and I had a vision as being, you know, a great guitarist. And so he is more macrocosm, I'm microcosm, you know. So it's just like, it's a yin and yang. You know, my brother and I are yin and yang, basically.
I want to thank you for your time, Michael, and wish you great shows tonight and tomorrow at the other Rock Pile East, as well as great success with this album and all your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and keep on rocking.